is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 338 of the CineSnob Podcast. My name is Cody Villafana. I am joined this week by Jocelyn Duran. Kiko Martinez still out, but I do have some updated news. We're going to be off next week, but the following week is there's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie coming out. And so, lo and behold, Kiko decides he wants to come back for that one. So,
wow.
With any luck, we'll have him back here to review the new Paul
PTA
Thomas Anderson movie. Yeah.
If he interviews Benicio, I will die.
I don't think. Well, I don't know. Who knows? You never really know. But
die.
Yeah. So look forward to our review of One Battle After Another in a couple of weeks.
I saw a movie poster for that recently, and it was really interesting because they didn't have PTA listed anywhere on the movie poster, and I just thought that was really bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he has the same like name recognition.
Especially, I think, for this movie. I feel like they're trying to almost separate it from being Paul Thomas Anderson, it seems.
Yeah, I think somewhat. And I think that, again, like it's a DiCaprio starring movie. So I think maybe that's like the selling point for people. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's some really good buzz about the movie, but
it's the first time he's worked with Leo and Benicio, no?
I don't know about Benicio, but Leo, yes.
I'm trying to think what movie Benicio. I'm pretty sure. I don't think Benicio has ever done a Anderson movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so, but I can't say for sure.
Right.
Oh, hold on one second.
Just some emails coming in that you got to respond to real quick.
No, Benicio del Toro is in Inherent Vice, I believe.
Oh, right. Really?
Yes, he is.
Was it a small role? I don't remember him in it.
I don't know. I don't remember that movie whatsoever.
I know, me neither.
But I can tell you that Benicio del Toro is in that movie.
All right.
Which is why I like to fact check on this show, and you should be a proponent of that.
I totally am. I didn't know it was related to what we were discussing. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a pretty prominent role as well. So my bad.
Yeah,
I should have known that.
That's all right.
Thanks.
Yeah, and so let's move on for something because I have a little thing to talk about here, which is the reason why we will not be here next week is because starting this upcoming Thursday, which is September 18th, the 20th version or iteration of Fantastic Fest kicks off in Austin, Texas, at the Alamo Drafthouse South Lamar Theater. So it is the 20th year that Fantastic Fest is operating, and it's always a really great and fun time of the year. One of my favorite festivals to go to, and I'll be there for most of the festival. And I just wanted to preview some of the main attractions this year. For anyone who is not familiar, Fantastic Fest is a festival that kind of like specializes in what you would call like genre films. So there's a lot of horror, there's a lot of action, like martial arts type movies. But in recent years, they have moved to showing a lot of like international films. It was one of the first places to play Parasite years ago. It played, Decision to Leave a couple of years ago, which I saw there. And it's a nice, interesting kind of like way to find some of these like highly touted international films. And that's the thing that I've really grown to like about it, is that there's a ton of like, movies from all different types of countries there, and a lot of it, unique and interesting. And I think
they take risks.
They do, and I think sometimes the risks work out, sometimes they don't. But I feel like, that's the side of, like I enjoy like some of the fun horror stuff, but those international films I think is kind of like the sweet spot of what I try to aim for when I go there. And in addition to that, there's like, it's also a launching pad for some, studio movies that are sort of in that, vein to to play there. And so, there's definitely some of that going on here. So just to kind of talk through some of the movies showing, on the sort of like mainstream side of things, they're showing The Strangers Chapter 2 is playing at Fantastic Fest. Another one is the I'm blanking on the other one. Where is it? I've got the schedule in front of me. Oh, Black Phone 2 is also playing at Fantastic Fest. Black Phone, the first one, played there as well. One thing that was a secret screening last year, which was the Creep tapes, is showing a few episodes of season 2 at the festival. Some of the stuff that I'm really looking forward to, they're playing the new A24 movie, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, starring Rose Byrne, A$AP Rocky, and Conan O'Brien. That sort of had a lot of buzz behind it. There's
Good
also
buzz too.
Yeah, good buzz behind it. There's also a movie called Obsession that I'm really looking forward to. So Obsession played at TIFF recently, and it was just picked up by Focus Features for like $15 million out of TIFF. And most of the positive buzz I heard about that movie was coming from that festival, and I think people really liked it. And I'm really looking forward to checking that out. It's a horror movie that it's the sort of synopsis is it's a character who's a music store employee who buys a supernatural toy and wishes for his childhood friend to fall in love with him. And I think maybe the obsession part may be like a maybe she falls in love too hard or something like that. I would assume. So yeah, it premiered at the Midnight Madness block at TIFF, and sold for a good amount of money there. And
Nice.
And so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to there's a movie that has a lot of really good buzz behind it. It's a new Neon movie that's coming out. And I'm getting the title of it right now because I don't remember it off the top of my head. Oh, it's called Sarat. And that's a movie that should be submitted for like awards season for Neon, part of their awards push. It took home the jury prize at the Cannes Film Festival, and looking forward to that as well. And then you have your opening and closing film. So opening film is a movie called Primate, and the closing film is a movie called Whistle. And those also sound pretty interesting. One of the things that I think is a really big thing that I kind of found when I went to the festival last year that really helped. When there's like 5 blocks of movies every day, so you could see 5 movies in a day, and if you do a press screening, that's 6. And by day like 4 or 5, you start to really feel the sort of weight of watching 5 movies a day in a theater. And so one thing that was really helpful for me last year was checking out some of the events that were like different. And so last year I checked out the Found Footage Festival, which is these 2 guys who basically scour the world for weird VHS videotapes and just sort of like play weird sections of videotapes and do commentary over them. And it's really funny. There's also, I went to last year, the Benson Movie Interruption, which is a Doug Benson and some comics sit in the front row of the theater with like live microphones, and you watch a movie, and they basically like do commentary and make jokes while you're watching the movie. I've done that the last 2 years in a row. Last year was they did Hackers. So everyone brings like DVDs, and then they pick in this theater and watch it.
This is the one with Angelina Jolie and.
This was the one with it was Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller.
Yes, her first husband.
Yeah,
I think I've seen that.
Yeah. And so this year, Doug Benson is doing it again. And this year, I think the theme is like medieval movies. And so people are encouraged to bring the DVDs out for that. There's also a Master Pancake show. They're doing Masters of the Universe. And so I always recommend people to, break it up a little bit with some of these live events. They do some podcast recordings there. I think they're doing the King Cast there. I believe that there is also Doug Benson's doing Doug Loves Movies, one of those episodes there. So there's just a lot to do. There's the Fantastic Feuds, which is people like debating, or actually Fantastic Feuds is like the Family Feud style horror trivia.
Okay.
And then they also do Fantastic Debates, which is where two people who have like opposing views, I guess, about movies, like go and do a boxing match at a gym.
That. I would love that.
So there's just a lot to do, and especially if you're into like genre stuff, horror, action, again, like martial arts stuff. It's just a really cool festival to check out, and so I think this is my like 8th or 9th year or something like that, and I always really look forward to it coming back. And I just talked about some of the movies, but I could go, the list goes on and on. And there's also like, you get like your cool little celebrity run-ins. Like this year, there's a movie called Coyotes that's premiering, and it stars real life couple Justin Long and Kate Bosworth, and they're going to be there. And I know that they have like a jury this year, like the jury for the competition part includes like Patton Oswalt and Fred Durst, and so I think, at least I know Patton Oswalt's going to be there for sure, but I'm not sure about Fred Durst. But that would be a nice run-in to have there. Oh, and then who can forget one of the most exciting things about Fantastic Fest, which are the secret screenings. So again, for anyone who doesn't know, every year Fantastic Fest books somewhere between like 4 to 6 secret screenings where you go into the theater and you have no idea what you're watching until the movie starts, basically. And sometimes it's a really early screening of a movie that is not coming out for a while. Sometimes it's something that is very genre related, but like highly anticipated. There's sometimes like, last year was like an awards caliber movie that nobody was predicting, which was The Apprentice showed there last year. The Creep Tapes showed last year as a secret screening, which was a TV show. They've showed a Marvel TV show there before as the first audience. Last year they showed Better Man, the Robbie Williams movie, several months before it came out. They also showed the Saturday Night Live movie last year. Saturday night.
I remember being jealous about all of those when you were getting to see them. Yeah,
it's been pretty cool. I there's a lot of debate that goes between these secret screenings where sometimes they've sort of like veered a little bit into like the mainstream, and sometimes they're kind of predictable. Like I was like almost positive that one of the Saw movie was going to be one of the secret screenings, and it ended up being one. But sometimes they're totally out of left field. I don't think anyone was predicting Better Man or Creep Tapes or Saturday Night was very predictable because I think that was a Sony movie, and Sony owns Draft House and by extension Fantastic Fest, so that one was like a fairly obvious one. But they definitely pulled some really interesting moves there, and it's always I'm always super curious to see what happens, especially one of the secret screenings this year is showing in the midnight block, and so that might be like an interesting one there. So anyway, I'm really excited to be there for the 20th edition this year, and of course,
it's the 20th anniversary.
Yes,
I missed that. Very cool.
I've said it. This is the 3rd time I've said it, but
well, if I have dogs interrupting.
Yes, you do. So I will be in Austin starting on Friday. And, of course, when I come back here in a couple of weeks, I'll have a full report back on some of my favorite things that I saw, maybe even have some reviews written on CineSnob.net. And I'm really looking forward to it. So I've got my schedule kind of mapped out, and I've got my snacks to sustain me purchased, and I've got some Alamo Drafthouse gift cards purchased to prepare for eating there way too many times. And so I'm ready to go. All right. So with that being said, we also have some movies to get to this week. Kind of a short episode, but why don't we get started?
Sounds good.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up this week, we have The Long Walk. The Long Walk is a movie that is directed by Francis Lawrence, perhaps best known for directing all of the Hunger Games movies, except for the first one? Question mark? I actually thought he directed everything, but now I'm looking at his filmography, and maybe he didn't. Who directed the first Hunger Games movie? Oh, it was Gary Ross. Okay. So Francis Lawrence directed, several Hunger Games movies, 3 that came out originally, and he directed the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes recently. And the movie is written by J.T. Molnar, who kind of had a big showing with a movie called Strange Darling that came out last year. A movie that I actually saw, interestingly enough, at Fantastic Fest years ago, where it had its world premiere in 2023. And it is an adaptation of a Stephen King book. Now, and I don't know if you knew this, but Stephen King, it is not the first book released by Stephen King, but it is the first book that Stephen King wrote as an author. So that's the sort of notable part of it. And The Long Walk is a sort of like dystopian movie about a sort of contest that is run where thousands of teenage boys apply to participate in, and a select few are chosen to walk a really long distance. Basically, they walk until so many, all of them sort of like drop out, and there's only one person remaining left, and the last person remaining is promised like riches and a wish of some kind. And basically the rules are you have to walk at least 3 miles an hour, and you are given 3 warnings if you like stop walking or go below 3 miles an hour. And if you fall, if you have those 3 warnings, you basically get executed. And it's basically people are dropping one by one, with the last one, being the last person standing. And I think the reason for this is sort of like, again, it's sort of like a dystopian future or not future, but dystopian society where, that kind of money and that wish can like be life changing, and it's broadcast to people. Although I feel like that's kind of like a forgotten about small part of the movie. And so the movie has a lot of like a cast of a lot of like decently known young actors. It stars Cooper Hoffman in the lead role, of course, the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, and also starring David Johnson, who really has kind of come alive in the last few years. He had a really great part in Alien Romulus, and he was also very good in this British movie called Rye Lane. And then you also see some familiar faces like Charlie Plummer, who I feel like, even though he's almost 30, has been playing a teenager for a really long time. And I really like him as an actor. You see Ben Wong, who was the star of the Karate Kid Legends movie recently. And they all play these kids who are going on the walk. I think as far as the movie is concerned, it is a pretty sort of like grim premise that sort of includes the sort of like unfortunate, violent deaths of a lot of teenagers in this dystopian society. I feel like the movie doesn't always do a great job of like contextualizing the dystopian, future, or like how or why they got to where they are. The sort of like surroundings with it, what happened, why they need the money, what society looks like. I think it kind of just like throws you into this contest, and I kind of do wish that there was a little bit more set up around it, and sort of like a little bit more world building that kind of gives you more context into what's going on. That being said, like I really like I am a person who really loves a good bleak movie. and a good bleak story. And I feel like this is like appropriately bleak, where, you know, you get to see, you know, not just sort of like the idea of this contest to begin with, but the idea that like, you know, these kids are sort of like forming bonds and relationships with each other, knowing that like only one of them is going to make it. And I feel like the you know, the central bond to the movie with the two characters of Ray and Peter, played by Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson, is sort of like the main total highlight of the movie, which is they play off of each other really well. I think they both give really solid performances, respectively. And I feel like that relationship is kind of at the core of, you know, what makes the movie work. Because otherwise, you know, you're getting to spend sort of like a few minutes with each of these characters before they get sort of like, you know, picked off one by one. And I think that that is like to the detriment of the movie somewhat, because I feel like there's two really good characters in the movie, and then a bunch of like other like very minor characters that don't, you know, didn't for me sort of like make a lasting impact or mark. You know, I think that like, you know, you have Charlie Plummer playing a character who's kind of like the asshole of the bunch. And I feel like Charlie Plummer is fine because I think he's a really good actor, but that character doesn't really do much for me. You know, Ben Wong plays a sort of wisecracking character, but again, like we don't spend enough time to establish these characters, and so they feel just sort of like archetypes rather than like actually being fully fleshed, well-rounded characters. Whereas I think the two main characters do feel fully fleshed out. You do get a little background and context. Their relationship actually gets some attention throughout the movie, and I feel like that is the piece of the movie that works. So I think for me, that's what everything really sort of rides on is those characters, the relationship they form, and the idea that they're, you know, forming this like really deep friendship and bond, even though like only one of them is going to make it. Now, I also think that one of the things the movie suffers from is like, because the framework is so heavy on these two characters, you kind of know like what it's going to come down to at the end of the day, which is that you can kind of predict, like, you know, as you're watching all these characters walk, like who's going to be first to go and who's going to make it to the end. And I feel like there's a little bit of predictability in that. I don't know that the ending is quite as emotionally impactful as as I feel like it's trying to be. And so, yeah, I mean, I was watching this movie, and it's like, it's very much sort of like, you know, by the nature of it, a walk and talk type movie where, you know, they start talking to each other about, you know, different things. And I just feel like that would have been a great opportunity to provide some social commentary as part of its dystopian, you know, themes. Like, how did we get to this point? Why are we doing this? Like, even the idea that it's being broadcast for people's entertainment. But the movie really never goes there. And I think that's a little bit of a frustrating thing, which is like, there's so much opportunity to like explore some of the thematic elements. And I feel like it doesn't always, if ever, take that opportunity. So ultimately, I just found myself frustrating because I think that it's an interesting idea, and I feel like there's like good pieces of it. I think it's got really good performances, and I still overall think the movie is good. But for me, it stops there. I don't feel like it is like truly remarkable. Or I know a lot of people think that this is one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever. I don't think that I'm on board with that idea, but it's fine enough, especially anchored by those performances. So, Jocelyn, I will move to you.
Yes, I think by far the thing that is the sort of shining star in this movie are the performances. I think they're excellent. Even Mark Hamill as the sort of aviator, you know, wearing sort of Cool Hand Luke type of a officer, military person. I thought he did great. I think he's almost unrecognizable. And you don't really see him playing the bad guy a lot, which was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. Yes, I think Cooper Hoffman was excellent. I think the relationships were great. It was giving me a lot of Stand By Me vibes, and you can definitely tell that it's the same author but I think Stand By Me is like a far superior film, of course. Like, I think everything that this movie does well, Stand By Me does 100 times better. So it's like, why, you know, I get what it's going for, and there are, you know, a lot of really heavy-handed, I think, metaphors. There's like there's like I think there's like a war metaphor that's going on, and then of course just like the journey of life, the philosophical elements of like of going through life, sort of existential elements, but all of those are sort of just really alluded to. Nothing's really made clear, and I have to definitely agree with you as far as like the broadcast goes. I kept waiting for that to come back, and I don't know, maybe it's because it was one of his first novels, but it's just, it doesn't leave a lot to the story. Like there's this huge element that's missing as far as like the audience at home. I kept expecting like almost like a Black Mirror episode, like it to come back at the end and there to be like a live audience or some crazy thing. And then it just kind of ends. And the end to me was incredibly disappointing. I totally agree with you that it just fell flat. I don't think it's as emotionally as like impactful as it seems to think it is. And so I really just kind of like left the movie thinking like, what was the point of all of that? Like it was this really sort of long walk. And then at the end, it's just sort of like falls flat and kind of just stops and really doesn't give you anything. So really, I think the performances were the best part of this movie. Maybe it was following, you know, it can't veer too far away from the novel if the novel stuck to that, you know, storyline. But for me, it's just, it wasn't, I may agree that it I can see how people are saying it's one of the best adaptations of Stephen King in a while. I just think there's far superior ones out there that I would prefer to see.
Yeah. So we'll get into final thoughts and grades. And again, I do appreciate the grim elements of it, and like, you know, I appreciate that it like it like addresses some of like the questions that like you may have for the movie, which is like what happens for the people who have to shit while they're on the long walk. And
For
it's like,
sure.
well, you get that answer in the movie, and like in to a degree where like there is a very like upsetting death that happens related to that in the movie, where it's like, Jesus, like what a way to go. And
There was a few that seemed unrealistic to survival, in my opinion, especially for people who are there to compete.
Yeah.
It felt like just sort of a device for someone to be killed when really like there was an easy way to go about, you know, preventing death. In my opinion.
And I think that like sometimes it doesn't always hit on playing into the dynamics that like the psychological dynamics that are going into it, and like how the relationships are affected by that. You know, that being said, you know, I think it has two really great performances here. I think I'm really excited to watch the rest of Cooper Hoffman's career, because I feel like
absolutely.
there's pieces of his dad and his roles, but not entirely. Like he's a different actor in many ways.
Agreed.
And
I feel like he's almost more commercial a little.
yeah,
Like he's able to handle the lead role really well, where his dad was more of a character actor.
yeah. I think that's a good point. I feel like he does have like leading actor potential, whereas Philip Seymour Hoffman didn't really have a ton of leading roles. Like really, I feel like until his last role, which was A Most Wanted Man, which I think was like notable because it was one of the few. Well, I guess that's actually not true, because he won an Oscar for Capote, but
Right.
But he didn't always have that spotlight, and he was really a character actor, and Cooper is very good. I feel like he has a lot of like charisma and on-screen charisma, and I'm just excited to watch him continue to grow as an actor, because I think he's already really good, and definitely inherited those skills. But he's like 22. Like there's a lot of that he's going to be able to do that I feel like is great, and like eventually moving away from being like Philip Seymour Hoffman's son and being his own actor, which will be great. And I think too, like, just to make a note on that, his character in the movie has like a certain like level of trauma where it gets sort of like not meta, but like this character, he has a monologue where he talks about like his dad and like his dad dying and stuff like that, and there's like some real stuff going on, I think, during that. And I think he's even alluded to it in interviews where he wanted to sort of like talk about his trauma or put something into it, and kind of like understand the character. And then this is not to sell David Johnson short, who is also like another great actor who delivers a really great performance. So I think that the performances and the main relationship kind of float the movie, even if a lot of the commentary, other characters, and story fall a little bit flat. So for me, this is a B minus. I recommend it. I think it's worth watching, though I don't think that it is, like I said, I don't think it's one of the better Stephen King adaptations. Well, I don't think it's one of the best Stephen King adaptations.
Yeah.
I don't think that it belongs up there with some of the highest highs that as in terms of like movies that he's made.
Right.
People are saying like it's as good as Shawshank Redemption. Like, I don't think so.
No way.
Yeah.
Like, not even close. Maybe the performances, because, like, I agree with you on all of everything you said. The performances are really the highlight. I think Cooper Hoffman he's just so comfortable. You just feel so at ease when he's on screen, and he does everything just so naturally. And it's just nice when you feel like you're in good hands. And him and David Johnson, is that his name? They are just excellent. The performance really elevate this movie. I feel like the script could have been better. I think there's a lot of elements that seem a little not unbelievable, but just it doesn't seem realistic for the type of competition that they were in. And then also, just like I said, the ending really sort of falling flat just kind of killed it for me, because I think it was heading in the right direction. I was excited to see where it went. And then also there's a twist that's a little predictable, and then the end falls. And a bad ending for me just really ruins anything that the movie was doing up to that point. So not the worst I've ever seen, not the best Stephen King adaptation I've ever seen by far. And I'm also giving it a B minus.
All right. Well, then we will move on to our final film of the episode, which is called The Baltimorons. So The Baltimorons is a film that I saw the premiere of at South by Southwest back in March. And so I have not seen it since then, but I remember it decently well, interestingly. So the movie is notable because it is directed by Jay Duplass of the Duplass Brothers fame. And the reason why it's particularly notable is, like, first and foremost, it is the first movie that a Duplass brother has directed since 2012. So it's been quite a while since they've been behind the camera in that capacity. Him and his brother Mark made a lot of movies together in like the mid 2000s, early 2010s, and then they kind of like started producing a whole lot of stuff, and then they both kind of did their acting thing, where Mark Duplass became like a really great actor. Jay was in like he was an actor as well, in like Transparent, and has done some other things too. And then now they Jay went back, and this is the first thing that he's kind of made on his own, where Mark is not. He's involved as like in the production company side of things, but Jay co-wrote the movie with the star Michael Strassner and directed it on his own. And the movie is about a man who is kind of like newly sober, and on Christmas Eve has a dental emergency, and so he finds an emergency dentist, and as part of he's being a little bit avoidant and not really wanting to go home. And so he decides to try to like hang out with his dentist for the day, and they kind of go on a Christmas Eve adventure where she's sort of like, she's also being a little bit avoidant, and they sort of like, he drags her along, and they kind of have this kind of like, it's kind of like a day in the life experience here. And so I think that the thing that really works about the movie is the thing that works, I think, about every Duplass Brothers movie, which is they're really great at movies that are surrounding relationships of some kind. And I think especially relationships that are like somewhat unorthodox or weird or like unusual. And they do relationship stuff really well, which is like they do really good like platonic relationship type stuff, which you can see in their HBO show. I think, what was that show called? Togetherness, I think it was what it was called.
Yes, I remember that.
And and they do like Jeff It Lives at Home, who is like a really great relationship between brothers. You see the movie Cyrus, which is a great relationship between like the person dating his mom and stuff like that. And this movie covers a relationship between like, yes, patient and dentist, but also the thing about the relationship that's kind of interesting is that there's like a age gap between the two characters where the woman, the dentist is like a little bit older than him. And that kind of plays into the dynamics of it all. I feel like both of the performances are really good here. Michael Strassner, again, co-writer of the movie, plays the lead role, and I just feel like it can be a little bit too much at times, but I do feel like he's a very like charismatic performer, and he plays into the charisma of it all. Throughout the movie, and there's like this very like jovial upbeat part of him, but like there is like this underlying sort of like darkness that's lingering, especially with like how the movie essentially opens with him, in a suicide attempt. And then, clearly his, he's like basically like an improv comedian who stopped doing improv because it was associated with his substance use, and he's sort of like tiptoeing and avoiding going back in that place. And then I also think that the performance from Liz Larson in the movie, who plays the dentist, is also, really great. She's also going through her own stuff. If I remember correctly, she's like, she has like, I don't know how recently, but somewhat recently divorced, and is sort of like, going through the steps of like, being on Christmas without, those same dynamics. And yeah, I mean, I think the movie just works because I just found the relationship between the two of them really charming. And I feel like the movie is pretty charming as well. And I think that it's, funny where it needs to be. I think it's, I like them playing off of each other. I like that, she's sort of this very reluctant character in this movie who eventually like comes out of her shell a bit. And I like the, there's some like questionable ethics, I guess, about his part in all of this because, he is in a relationship, but I do think that the romance actually feels pretty authentic for how it establishes, throughout the movie. And like, it kind of like, it's a character that sort of like gets worn down by his charm by the middle of it, which is why she continues to, be a part of the stuff that he's trying to put her up to. So yeah, I mean, I think I just found the movie overall pretty charming. So I will go on to you and get your thoughts.
I feel like I had a similar experience to the characters in this movie where I fought liking it for so long, and then it just like I gave myself over to it and just I loved it. I thought it was so sweet.
Yeah.
I wanted to not like it for like I even stopped it and came back to it. In the second half of the movie, it really just wins you over in ways that I did not expect. I'm not a big fan of improv, and there's a scene of improv. And the way that he's like coaching her through it and literally just like telling her that what she's doing is wrong during it is so funny. Anyway, I really did not expect to like this movie, but I feel like both performances are done so genuinely nice. The situations are never extremely, like unbelievable. But they're funny. Like they find these little moments. Like even when there's a part where he basically like to sort of impress, and the ex-husband, like he promises him but box seats. It's such a dumb it's like a very simple thing to do. He just lies to him basically, but it's and I really loved it because it felt very real. It just felt like like things that real people could do, real situations that you may be in, that you're just trying to have a little fun. And it's for the other person. It's for the, this dentist woman.
Yeah, an audience of one, kind
exactly.
Of thing.
Yeah.
And also too, the relationship again is just really sweet of like how protective he gets over her and like how like really trying to like prop her up a little bit and like he sees her and they kind of see each other in that way.
100%. And there is the drama that he is in a relationship. I think they handle that well. It's like it's very clear that there's like a traumatizing thing that sort of not ruin their relationship, but really they can't move past. But now he has this new thing with this older woman, and I didn't know if it was going to be going in a romantic direction. But once it does, I feel like it saves it for the perfect moment, because once it does, it's just lovely, and you can really, like you said, you can see why she has sort of like he has charmed her.
Yeah.
This like kind of, oof, like umph of a guy. He's like a kind of a doofusy guy. Just kind of wins you over. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say and I think it brings about one of the things that I kind of like about the Duplass brothers, and I think maybe some people don't like about them, which is that they are very sort of like
Normcore.
What?
Normcore, like normal normcore.
Well, no, but I think that they are always very like hard on their sleeve with the stuff that they do, which is like they're sort of like very like genuinely and unabashedly like emotional. And I feel like they don't hide from that at any point. And I feel like at some point it can be like, again, people see it as a detriment because they can see it as like saccharine or sappy or whatever it might be. I can see it
as a detriment. Like I was sort of, I think that's why I was fighting it for the first half, because I know that that's how they can be. And I knew that's where this was heading, but it sort of does a little bit of a magic trick where it sort of makes you not believe it's happening, if that makes sense, which is really hard to do when they're sort of known for it. And so
yeah,
do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, for sure. And again, and I think it just really works for the movie, and it feels like a Duplass brothers movie in that type of way. It's and that is sort of like, they're known for mumblecore, which is like a lot of improvised like dialogue and very realistic situation, very minimalist type of movies where it's just kind of like two characters or few characters getting into situations and then just like having conversations that feel real. And that's why mumblecore works so well, is because when it works, it feels super real. And I feel like this movie feels very real and authentic.
Not to mention, of course, the Baltimore element, which is like that's a city with such a sort of like a sort of the reputation sort of precedes itself. So you really, you have to do Baltimore people authentically. Like it's sort of like Philadelphia. You can't do it inauthentically because people are going to come after you. And there's like, they incorporate a lot of Baltimore stuff into the movie. That's really sweet. And also just it being, Christmas time, it's really pretty. Like it's beautifully shot. It's just nice to see the city sort of glistening. Sorry to interrupt, but it was just also that element as far as like the Baltimore aspect of it really got me.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we'll get into final thoughts and grades. And again, for me, I think the movie is just effortlessly charming. And I feel like that's the best word I can think about it. It's just super, super charming. I really enjoy the Michael Strassner performance in this, where like at first it is kind of grating. And then you, again, like I said, just like the character happens in the movies, it kind of wears you down and he wins you over just because you see that he's real and he's authentic and he's like, and also too, you see that he's struggling where, he had to give up this thing that's really important to him because it's so associated with, his substance use, but like that thing is the thing that defines him. And I think it's just such a interesting sort of push and pull that character goes through. And then again, I feel like the romance could have been something that felt hokey and unbelievable, but it feels very real. And I feel like part of that is due to just like the chemistry that him and Liz Larson have, where it just works. And it feels like it shouldn't work and it just works. And so for me, I think this is just a really solid indie movie. I give it a really solid B.
Yep, I totally agree. I feel like I said, despite my best efforts to try not to like it, it eventually won me over. And I think that is because maybe it just takes its time and it doesn't try too hard at all, which is really unusual, I think, nowadays. I'm giving it a B+.
All right. So that'll do it for this week. And as we said before, we are going to skip next week. So unfortunately, we won't be able to cover a movie that I kind of am interested to see, which is A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. So we're going to have to skip that one. But we will be back with One Battle After Another the following week, as well as, I'm sure, a handful of independent movies and such, as we always cover. So if you want to reach out to us, reach out at podcast@cinesnob.net or find us anywhere on social media with CineSnob as the name. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and find all of our reviews in clip form, as well as a bunch of different interviews that Kiko has done on cinesnob.net. Look out also for Fantastic Fest coverage coming soon. I think that's about it. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.